This is GB 819 of Substack and X. The following is a video/audio output of original Substack content. Section: Professional Managerial Class. Title: Why the PMC is worse than the far right to a class-based leftist. Subtitle: PMC equals Professional Managerial Class. Body: the term, class reductionist, is thrown around as an insult by liberals who substitute identity politics and social liberalism for a raw class analysis. The fact that some people claim socialism as an ideology while doing this does not change the fact that they are actually neoliberals. However, a true dissident who puts class first as Marx and Lenin did will wear the term, class reductionist, as a badge of honor. Orthodox Marxism is essentially two-class Marxism. There is the proletariat, working class, and the bourgeoisie, the owners. Orthodox Marxists, and others like Marxist-Leninists and Maoists and Third Worldists, do often believe in a labor aristocracy, which is essentially still the working class but a well-off and privileged part of the working class but still part of the working class. To fully understand the PMC, however, one must modify old-school Marxist ideology to include a third class, the professional managerial class. This should not be confused with the labor aristocracy. The PMC is the class of human resources professionals and middle managers that take over a company when outside funding runs the company more than direct revenue from sales. This occurs either through taking venture capital or listing as a public company on the stock exchange. While the labor aristocracy is privileged but not really problematic, the same cannot really be said about the PMC. The PMC strips the founder and line executive of his power and pulls an entire regime change on the office. The people who built the company are thrown out or reduced to figureheads, while people from elite universities and conveyor belt career progressions take over. Logistics and manufacturing are not touched because they cannot afford this bloat, but the corporate office is decimated. Metrics are fudged, offices are politicized, they call it soft skills. Handshake hiring is eliminated and only people with pristine backgrounds and elite trajectories can get hired. Bloat becomes a feature, not a bug, and the whole office operates around a cog-style management where everything is about conforming to the blueprint that investors want, a cookie-cutter blueprint, and efficiency means nothing and Six Sigma, define, measure, analyze, improve, control, is thrown out. Nobody wants efficiency anymore and hiring is treated like a marriage instead of a first date, with multiple rounds of interviews and no willingness to give an unconventional candidate a shot, or the investors will revolt. Political dissidents are flagged as nonconformists and excluded. In the West, the expected ideology is usually socially liberal but hawkish on foreign policy and Israel. In Israel, the ideology is hyper-Zionist and anti-Arab. Finally, companies are usually, but not always, relocated to expensive metros when companies go public and invite in the PMC, so that the salary may be higher but is wedded to high housing costs, thus still paycheck to paycheck. Remote work did create a loophole, but the PMC has closed down that loophole by grading salary to your local cost of living. Moral of the story: do not work for companies that go public or accept venture capital. The PMC is dominant in elite zip codes and expensive metropolitan areas. The Democratic Party is basically the party of the PMC, while modern Republicans represent a more industrial capitalism, as opposed to finance capitalism, that is more tied to working-class metropolitan areas. This is not an endorsement of Republicans, because while they are not part of the PMC, they still want to savagely cut the safety net. For different reasons, both parties have problems. The Democratic Party is the party of the PMC and elevating identity politics over class is the strategy of the political arm of the PMC. They elevate identity politics so that they can both implement cosmetic corporate changes around gender, sexual orientation, race and religion in corporate ranks without actually redistributing wealth, and they stick most affirmative action hires in the exact type of bloated middle management and HR roles that I am complaining about in this article. Because they elevate identity politics, they portray the far right, the dissident right, the alt-right and the white nationalists as the main enemy instead of opposing classes. A class-based leftist has a different approach. A class-based leftist may disagree on whether the bourgeoisie or PMC is the main enemy but will certainly agree that powerless dissident populists are not the main enemy. Instead, the right is viewed as people who are largely working class aligned, in general, not always, but ideologically in error. The PMC treats dissident right association as permanently disqualifying. In the era of the PMC-run Democratic Party, someone like Robert Byrd could not overcome his Ku Klux Klan past today. Today a liberal Democrat would be run out of the party, except as a voter, if even you had posted on blackface when you were 15 years old and got caught. The class-based left is not like this. The class-based left views dissident populist right association as an error that can be corrected. You can move on from the past. The populist right shares many views with the class-based left on foreign policy and opposition to society's elites. They do diverge significantly on other points around identity. My own version of class-based leftism is heavily minimalist, retreat from concentrated wealth, and praises vanguardism and counter-signaling modern social media aesthetics and usage. Not all class-based leftists share those traits, but any good class-based leftist will agree that the main problem is classes that oppose the proletariat and not people who ideologically stray into the populist right. The debate between class-based leftists is whether the two-class model is obsolete and the PMC is a standalone third class that is against the interests of both workers and business owners, and whether the PMC is actually a bigger problem than the bourgeoisie. After reading this article, you know where I stand on that question. Visit GB819 on Substack and X.